y'all. Welcome to Adventures with Kendall. Today's adventure is going to be a mouth-watering one because we're going to learn the history of A&W Root Beer. More specifically, its ties to the Central Valley. We're going to have a fun time learning the story of this fast food franchise, and I can't wait to take you. So let's get going and learn the story of A&W Root Beer. Our story begins on June 20th, 1919, in the small Central Valley town of Lodi, California, when partners Roy W. Allen and Frank Wright were selling root beer using the former's formula that he bought from a pharmacist in Arizona at a root beer stand to returning World War I veterans. The following year, A&W opened its first drive-in restaurant located in Sacramento, California. Even though Roy Allen would later buy out Frank Wright's share in the business, the chain of root beer stands retained the name A&W. Afterwards, in 1925, Allen began franchising the root beer, while the franchisee added other menu items. These franchisees also operate at their own discretion. This could explain the variety of items on the menu, such as hot dogs or burgers on old vintage menus from A&W. In the beginning, A&W restaurants were built in the shape of large root beer barrels, such as this one. However, in the expansion years of the 1950s and 60s, the restaurants became a standard drive-in eatery. Here's an example of a former A&W restaurant in that style, now operating as the popular Wilkins in downtown Selma, California. It even has an original Papa statue on the roof, which will lead to our next part of our story, the family statues. The Burger family was created to promote a line of burgers being sold at A&W, such as Papa, Mama, Teen, and Baby Burger, and were represented by large statues that were put on top of the canopies at A&W restaurants. Here's an example of a Papa Burger statue. This used to be on top of the A&W restaurant in my hometown of Porterville, California. A quick, fun history fact about A&W Burgers. It was at a location in Lansing, Michigan in 1963 that the world was introduced to the bacon cheeseburger. Anyway, the official mascot for A&W is Rudy the Great Root Bear, who was introduced in 1973. And speaking of Rudy, he has appeared on wonderful A&W merchandise, whether it's plush toys, collectible mugs, and even a Lionel Trains boxcar. Another fun thing to collect are vintage A&W mugs that were used inside the restaurants, especially when they served their delicious A&W root beer float. A wonderful concoction made out of wonderful A&W root beer and some nice vanilla ice cream. Another fun collectible from the past are these large A&W mugs. These were purchased at A&W restaurants when they were the only place to actually buy A&W root beer, as demonstrated by this Dennis the Menace comic strip. They also sold this refillable thermal mug for anyone wanting A&W root beer on their picnic. This ended in 1971 with the first canning of A&W root beer for regular consumption in 1971. While A&W root beer is sold in stores today, there are still A&W restaurant locations, some of which share their building with other fast food franchises. Either way, each location is a fun place to eat at the oldest fast food franchise in the world. And some of these restaurants are a great blast from the past, including our last location, Modesto, California. Not only does this location have a great selection of meals, but has a great ambiance of an A&W restaurant from the 1950s and 60s. A fun place to enjoy your meal is the outdoor eating area. Out here, you will find the big Papa and Baby Burger statues and a nice small playground for the children. And of course, there is the food. Here's my meal: the original bacon cheeseburger, an A&W root beer lollipop, a cup of A&W root beer, and some nice fries. This is gonna be a good meal. And that's the story of A&W, especially its connection to to the Central Valley. I hope you had a fun time, but now let's head back to the studio. Did your mouth water at the sight of that delicious food? It did for me. That burger? Both were good at the Modesto restaurant and at the Wilkins in Selma, California. And the history behind A&W is fascinating, and it ties so well with the Central Valley, especially celebrating our veterans in war. Speaking of California history, we're heading to Paris, California for our next adventure because we're going to visit the Southern California Rail Museum. It's going to be a fun day of seeing trains and trolleys in one spectacular location, so I can't wait to take you there. But until then, if you have a location for us to go on, comment or email down below. We would love to see your suggestions, and also subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to see your faces. Now that's all the time we have here on Adventures with Kendall. See you later, folks, and may your gifts bless the world.